We are getting into something super fun today. This Manny right here, I'm gonna show you guys how to use this stamper to shrink an image, okay? If you're somebody who loves stamping or you've been wanting to try stamping and you're like, well, some of the images are just too big for my hands, I got you, okay? This jelly stamper right here is from Uber Chic, and you can use this to shrink and enlarge images. So we're gonna jump right in and I'm gonna show you how I did this gorgeous Manny with shrink stamping.
I have to start off by saying this was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. Here's the plate that we're using, and then we're going to start off by doing our dip mani before we start our stamps. So I pretty much always dip my nails first before I do my stamps. I have builder gel down as a base on my natural nails, so no matter what length they are protected in between dip manis, and then I use peel base over top of that, and then I do my dip. These two gorgeous colors were called Jeep. And you'll see that as I'm applying it, that it's actually this beautiful thermal. It's like a really pale purple to a darker purple. And then the stunning deep purple flaky color is called Poor Unfortunate Souls. I was totally going for a mermaid vibe with this mani based on the plate I wanted to use. So whenever you're dipping with a thermal, something that you want to make sure you do, and I did this off camera, is I stirred up the thermal powder really well before applying. I've seen people say like, oh, my thermal looks splotchy or my thermal didn't go on right. Most of the time it's because they didn't stir up the powder and they probably dipped their nails in. I found that pouring over the powder for thermals works really well. It gives me a really nice even application as long as I've really made sure I mixed up the powder. I really try to keep thermals as thin as possible on each layer because the thermal powder tends to be a little bit denser of a powder. So when I'm applying my dip base on my nails, I really try hard to not flub my cuticles, to keep my dip base really thin, all those good things to make sure that my thermal nails don't get too thick. And you can see while I'm doing each layer, they're changing literally as my hands get like cold or warm. The color is this light pale purple when it's warm and the darker purple when it's cold. So you know that the tips of my nails are the darker purple since the base of my nails the lighter one, because I obviously my body was warmer while I was doing this, because I usually wear a sweatshirt when I dip my nails to keep my arms covered so nothing gets on my skin. With thermal powder, it's just like any other dip powder. You want to really make sure that you scrub off the excess powder in between each layer. That is something that's also going to keep your thermals looking really nice and even and not splotchy, is making sure you don't have any like random excess powder anywhere on the nails when you go to do the second or third layers. Now, I only need to do 2 dips of each of the colors since I have builder gel down, and then I do 1 dip of clear to encapsulate everything. I use clear as my last layer, no matter what kind of dip powder I'm using. It is my go-to ride or die method. I stand by it because anytime that you go and you file, buff, or shape on any kind of dip powder, it can mess with the color. And after we worked so hard, we definitely do not want to mess up our beautiful dip nails, right? Let me know in the comments if you are somebody who uses clear dip powder as your last dip, that is your go-to method, or if you're more of a take a chance and not use clear dip and just be careful when you buff and shape. You'll notice that after every dip, I like to trace around my cuticles with an orange wood stick or some kind of pointy nail tool. I've been gravitating towards the orange wood sticks lately. I don't know, I go back and forth on what I do. When my nails are long, I tend to grab the orange wood sticks because they're a little bit thicker and I feel like I just need some extra space by my cuticles when my nails are long, versus when they're short, I'll use just like the pointy metal nail tools. And I make sure when I'm pouring my clear dip powder over that I go through and trace around my cuticles then too. The clear dip powder is so much thinner than like a color dip powder, so I like to really make sure none get stuck in my cuticles. And then I always go through and activate after I've brushed off the excess clear. I activate my solids and shimmers first, because when I'm doing my glitters, flakes, and foils, your girl is really messy, okay? If you haven't watched my videos yet and seen me in other ones, I am a really messy dipper. I try not to be, I swear. But pretty much no matter what, I knock something over, I drop something. So activating the solid and shimmer nails just keeps me from getting any glitters, flakes, or foils into those nails, and I can keep them, you know, nice and clean for whatever nail art I'm going to do. So whenever you're dipping flakes, and this goes for foils and glitters, the best method is to pour them into some kind of dip cup like I'm using, or a cupcake liner, so you can lay your nail flat and you're really picking up the pieces of the dip that you want to. So this dip is a flake, which means I'm going to try to pick up as many of the flakes on both dips as possible, because the flakes are really thin and they just kind of melt down. So both dips I aim for maximum flakage picking up as I possibly can, so that on that second dip, like, the flakes are just popping really, really well. My other must-do trick for when I dip glitters, flakes, and foils is taking a piece of washi tape and putting it on one of the fingers on my opposite hand so that I can press the flakes, foils, or glitters down. I do not want to get any dip powder or any dip base on my skin. I try really, really hard not to get any on my skin. That's actually why you see me wearing gloves in every video. I got contact dermatitis from doing my nails too much. It was almost 2 years ago now. So it just made me really conscious of what I'm doing, what, you know, I'm touching my nails with. And I really try to be careful to keep everything off. I do not want any type of nail allergies, okay? One, because I love doing my nails and I don't want to give it up. And two, because, you know, you can get allergic to like acrylates and stuff like that, which those are in medical procedures and medical implants from what I understand. So I don't want to be messing with anything like that either. Once you're done pressing all your flakes down and they're nice and melted in, you can top with clear dip powder and then go through and activate those nails. So the way that you know your nails are ready to be buffed and shaped is to tap on them, and then you can do your buffing, filing, and shaping. And I did all of that off camera so we can jump right into our fun stamping. I have been continuing to pick up Uber Chic's nail art barrier for my skin. It's latex free and I really like to use it right around my nail so that if I get any of the stamping polish on my nail, no big deal. I just peel it off when I'm using the nail art barrier. I can just pull that right up. I wanted to keep this mani pretty simple since I knew I was going to try to shrink the stamp. So on the first one, all I wanted to do was pick up the mermaid scales. Now we're going to try shrinking the stamp, okay? And this was my first try ever doing it. This stamp shrinker is from Uber Chic. I'll link everything that I used in the description like I always do. Sometimes I forget to say that, but that's where it always is. Now, I went through and I picked up my image, but what I tried to do first was I twisted it so that it would be totally loose the first time. And then I twisted it so that I thought it would make the stamp smaller, but I wasn't thinking when you're twisting it and pushing it up, it's making the stamp bigger. It's expanding the image. I'm looking at it. I'm like, come on, Nicole, duh. That makes no sense. So if you want to shrink an image, then you have to do the opposite. And yes, I watched multiple videos on this, but when it came time to do it, did I remember? Of course not. So the way that you get the stamp to shrink is by twisting up the little stamper so that it expands the top of the stamp as much as possible. You pick up the stamp and then untwist it so it shrinks everything up. And it worked so well. The mermaid tail just fit on my nails and I loved how it looked. But I messed it up a little bit, so I thought, okay, that's right. This was the first time I'm doing it. I'm just going to practice and try again. So if you mess up your stamp, even if you put it on your nail, no big deal. I just took some isopropyl alcohol on a lint-free wipe, wiped it off my nail, and you can see the second time that I shrunk it, I made sure that I really twisted up the stamper again, so it pushed it like all the way out, so that when I untwisted it, the stamper shrunk really nicely. And it wasn't anything insane. It was really easy to do. Like, I was so nervous to do shrinking an image, and now I know how to enlarge an image too, because I accidentally did that the first time that I was trying to shrink it. I saw this done quite a few times from Maniology and Uber Chic, but of course, like, I didn't remember, I just went for it, which is like, typical of how I do all of my manis. I just go for it. Once I got that down, then I took off the nail art barrier on both of the stamp nails and tried to get the rest of the polish off. I ran out of polish remover because I'm actually allergic to acetone, so I can't use that on my skin or I get like these red bumps. So, so I just tried to wipe off the excess stamp with some isopropyl alcohol. That didn't work. I used some tape. That didn't work. And then I thought, forget it. It'll just come off in the shower. Once you're done with all your stamps and they've totally dried, you want to make sure that you use a layer of smudge-free top coat over the entire nail, not just the stamped image, and you want to cap your edges, and I'm going to explain why. I absolutely love using dip liquids to top coat. When I started doing more stamping, I was just topping with nail polish top coat. And then I was like, wait a second, I miss my dip top coat. How can I figure out a way how to use it? So I started doing some little experiments, some nail experiments, and found out that if I do smudge-free top coat over the entire nail and cap the edges, I can use dip top coat exactly like I normally would. So the key to this, first of all, is letting the smudge-free top coat totally dry. It cannot be wet at all, or else it will make your dip top coat not work. So I like to let it dry for like 10 minutes. I have done 5 before to let the smudge-free top coat dry, but it just doesn't turn out as nicely for the dip top coating. So if you let it dry about 10 minutes, then you can go through and do your dip top coating exactly how you would for whatever brand liquids you're using. I'm using OG dip powder here. So for those dip liquids, you do heavy activator on 5 nails, thumb to pinky, count to 10, and then go back in with your first layer, thumb to pinky, floating the first top coat over in 2 to 3 quick strokes, and then you can go in for your second top coat immediately after that. And it really is that easy to top coat with dip top coating. Now, if you're ready to jump right into some more stamping and you're like, okay, I think I might be able to try this stamping thing, make sure you check out the next video and I will help you learn how to stamp. Thanks for joining me today, Nail Crew.